Thank you for joining us for CBN NewsWatch. I'm Ephraim Graham. Washington is abuzz with more news about Donald Trump Jr.'s meeting with a Russian attorney during last year's presidential campaign. The president's son released an email chain about the event, and now the Justice Department investigators say they plan to examine the meeting. Our Heather Sells is on this story.
Donald Trump Jr. released his lengthy email chain that shows what happened. Emails from publicist Rob Goldstone last summer indicated that a Russian lawyer had damaging information about Democratic presidential candidate Hillary Clinton. Trump Jr. said, "I love it," and agreed to the meeting. Last night on Sean Hannity's show, he expressed regret and said that the meeting went nowhere.
In retrospect, I probably would have done things a little differently.
The Russian lawyer told NBC News that she had no connection to the Kremlin, although Trump Jr. was reportedly told before the meeting that the Russian government had information that could help his father. The revelation about the meeting, including Trump Jr., along with Trump's son-in-law Jared Kushner and campaign official Paul Manafort, has caught Washington by surprise. And now a race has begun to see who gets the first crack at questioning him. 3 different congressional committees are investigating Russia's interference in last year's election, and they each want to talk with Trump Jr., who says he's willing to talk to Congress. CNN reports special counsel Robert Mueller's team will also examine the meeting and emails as part of its Russia investigation. Lawmakers were quick to respond to the story, with some Democrats taking a very hard line.
This is moving into perjury, false statements, and even into potentially treason.
The White House called such language ridiculous, but a few Republicans openly criticized the president's son, too.
His characterization of the meeting has changed, which creates suspicion.
Other Republicans are defending Trump Jr. or keeping quiet. The president on Tuesday applauded his son's transparency and called him a high-quality person. Heather Sells, CBN News.
President Trump's new FBI pick has a confirmation hearing today. Christopher Wray is a former top official in the Bush administration's Justice Department. Today's hearing will look into his legal career and any other ties Wray may have to the White House. Both Democrats and Republicans want assurance of his ability to remain independent in the Oval Office. If confirmed, Wray will replace James Comey, who President Trump fired back in May. The U.S. Senate has decided to work through 2 weeks of their August recess because they say they have too much to get done with not enough working days in Washington left before the fiscal year ends. Our Abigail Robertson brings us more now on that decision.
Senators are taking a page out of the private sector's book, canceling part of their August recess because they haven't finished their work.
At this time, it doesn't make any sense for us to just take the month of August off.
Republican leadership blame a historic obstruction by Democrats in confirming President Trump's nominees as the main thing stalling their legislative work.
The president's nominated 196 people. 23% of his nominees have been confirmed. 69% of President Obama's nominees had been confirmed by the 1st August he was in office. 10% of President Trump's nominees have been allowed to have a voice vote. 90% of President Obama's nominees were confirmed by voice vote.
Senator Blunt calculates at this rate it would take over 11 years for the Senate to confirm all the nominees.
That, of course, would not allow us to do anything else. It is unacceptable. It's outrageous. Something has to change.
Democrats say canceling the recess is more about Republicans trying to pass a health care bill to replace Obamacare.
I have sympathy for the Republicans. If I were them, I wouldn't want to go home and face the voters either, because they're not getting a very good reaction when it comes to this bill.
McConnell hopes for a vote next week on a revised version if he can win over some GOP opposition. Republican senators have a big agenda they want to accomplish this year beyond health care, but they're running out of time. One thing some don't want is a distraction: the drama following the White House over possible collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia.
We've got to come up with a health care outcome. We've got to come up with a tax plan. We've got to come up with a spending strategy. And we've got to be disciplined and not get distracted by things that may be legitimate, but not right now in our lanes.
Other GOP members say it's raising questions that need to be answered.
I'm sure they met with a lot of people during the campaign. I'm sure the Clinton campaign met with foreign governments about, what their administration would look like. But we've been asking for months now, what Russian contacts did you have? So it's frustrating to find something new. And this email is very disturbing. But at the end of the day, we got to find out what happened, whether there's any information exchanged, and why did they send these people to somebody who knew nothing? I don't know.
Senators on both sides say they would like to hear Donald Trump Jr. testify before a committee. Reporting from Washington, Abigail Robertson, CBN News.
Abigail, thank you. The Church of England is rejecting that homosexuality is a sin. Sunday, the church voted in favor of a motion to affirm transgender people in the church. Reverend Christopher Newland said, "We believe that trans people are cherished and loved by God, who created them and is present through all the twists and turns of their lives." The church also denounced conversion therapy for those struggling with same-sex attraction. A gay evangelical writer within the church stated the therapy could be, quote, harmful and dangerous. She added people can never change their, quote, innate desire. And still ahead, here on CBN NewsWatch, human trafficking is a growing problem in the U.S., but police are using a new tactic to put so-called Johns in jail. Find out how this cover method is saving lives. Stay with us for more of CBN NewsWatch straight ahead. Government officials are trying a new way to slow down the sex trade, going after the customers on the street and online, and then hitting them with much stronger penalties. Heather Sells rode along with police in Sarasota, Florida, on one of these sting operations.
Posing as a woman for sale, this undercover cop attracted 2 buyers within minutes.
Black Nissan Altima is very interested. He's pulled over. She also has a white Benz interested. No competition. She's walking up to the black Altima. No tint, facing west.
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
How are you going?
Good. What you doing?
And for the next couple of hours, a steady stream of customers hoping to trade money for sex kept these 2 undercover officers very busy and led police to a series of arrests.
You guys 1074 on a stop.
Sarasota is one of more than 1,000 cities taking these bold steps. They find that reverse stings, where cops target so-called Johns, are extremely effective. Kinsey Pentecost works with trafficking survivors here and sees how the reverse stings help.
It's been a complete turn in how they deal with demand. They used to let them go, let them be a little easy on them. Now, no way. They say this is not going to happen in our city.
Research shows that going after customers can reduce prostitution by as much as 75%. One strong deterrent is hitting their wallet. In Florida, authorities multiplied the $500 penalty for soliciting a prostitute times 10.
When the $5,000 fine came into effect, we saw a very large increase in actual trials.
Another effective strategy, sending these Johns to school. A one-day class emphasizes direct consequences, like STDs, as well as the suffering of trafficking victims.
If you see a survivor of prostitution or trafficking come in and explain that, why they were doing it and how they were forced into it, it humanizes them so they're not an object just for sex.
Like many communities, Sarasota doesn't stop with just fines and a class for those arrested. It impounds their cars. It publishes press releases with their pictures and even sends a letter home. Addressed to the car's owner, it states that someone in the car was interacting with a prostitute. Experts say men fear this social shaming far more than other penalties.
A lot of times they're married and wives see it, and we know putting them in the paper, social media, putting them in jail. I mean, those are things that people take serious.
Sweden first developed the concept of punishing the buyer while rehabilitating the victim instead of punishing her. Canada and France have adopted the model, and the U.S. is well on the way. Anti-trafficking leader Benjamin Nolo is a strong believer.
How you define prostitution will determine your laws regarding it, okay? So Sweden goes, no, this isn't about girls choosing this and making money the easy way. This is a system of violence and exploitation. They come up with the right formula for legislation. It eradicates sex trafficking in their nation.
The U.S. is learning more about those who buy sex. A joint effort between the National John Suppression Initiative and law enforcement has led to the arrest of more than 6,000 buyers in 6 years. More often than not, they're white, college-educated, married, and middle-aged. CBN News found out firsthand they can also be desperate to evade the law.
One of the buyers pulled into this hotel to meet an undercover female officer. But as police moved in on him in the parking lot, he took off.
All right over the curb.
We watched as the buyer fled down the street. Later, police found his abandoned car in a nearby neighborhood. No sign of the suspect anywhere. At times, police here feel their work is just a drop in the proverbial bucket, as the demand for sex goes on 24/7. But if research and results are any indication, these tactics are helping reduce the horror of human trafficking in significant ways. Reporting in Sarasota, Florida, Heather Sells, CBN News.
He is topping both Christian and secular music charts with his bold message for the church. We're sitting down with rapper Wray to talk faith, family, and how he doesn't quite fit the mold. He's topped both Christian and secular charts, and he's been on The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon more than once. He's even attended a birthday party for Billy Graham. But rapper Wray is now making news for his latest tune, I'll Find You. In it, he teams up with singer Tori Kelly to encourage people who are battling cancer. The 37-year-old says he is not afraid of addressing real problems people face, including issues of racial injustice. He recently sat down with a Christian think tank called Q, and he wanted to talk about how the church can bridge the divide.
If there's any picture of how this type of cultural divide can be unified in a unique way where the world looks upon it and says, what is this? I've never seen this. Where genuine relationships are being built, where people are having dinner across the table for one another, where I need somebody who doesn't look like me. Not just a casual handshake, not just a phone call, not just, I saw him at work or I saw him on Sunday, but I need this person in my life. Everything begins to change.
I sat down with the artist to talk about the message behind one of his highest-selling Christian rap albums to date, Anomaly.
How did I fall in this? No condition to get a mention, but you offer this unconditional love. I swear
All I Need Is You is just one hit from Lecrae's record-breaking project.
The concept of the album is embracing the fact that you're different. You know, in many ways, you're going to be an outcast.
The album is called Anomaly, and it's just that, the first to ever land simultaneously at the top of the Billboard and gospel music charts. #1 on Billboard, being invited to sit in with the Roots on NBC's Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. Gladys Knight tweeting she's listening to your music and loves it. Why do you think the world is praising you?
It's an anomaly. But it's very obvious that it's God's handiwork. You know, it's very obvious that, he's showing off and saying, hey, guess what? This independent guy, many of you don't know, who loves me, is right here. How did it happen? Nobody knows, because I did it. You know what I mean? It's just kind of like, ha-ha.
The Houston native started his own record label, Reach Records, more than 10 years ago. This husband and father describes himself as something that doesn't quite fit. A humble hip-hop artist whose music doesn't glorify sex, drugs, or violence. Plus, he's an outspoken Christian. Do you like being labeled a Christian rap artist?
I like being labeled a Christian. I think Christian is a wonderful noun and not a great adjective. I think the noun Christian is this person is a devout follower, and that's great. I think when you say this is Christian table or this is a Christian shirt, what does that really mean? And so I think sometimes it can actually hinder my personal mission by having that label on my music. Just because I don't know what some people say, oh, he's a Christian rapper, that means it's for Christians, or he's a Christian rapper, that means it's not good. So, yeah.
With more than a half dozen albums under his belt, Lecrae wants to reach all audiences with his music. His Gravity project won the Grammy for Best Gospel Album. Anomaly is your 7th album. How has your music changed since the first?
My music has changed in the same ways that I have. You know, I've just grown as a man. I think there's a confidence now in some of my experiences in life. You know, when I started out, I was just regurgitating things I was learning on the fly. So learning something, learning it, spit it out, learn it, spit it out. I've seen my children born. I've seen children die. And that shaped me. And I'm not saying I'm done, but the music has the residue of that shaping.
That residue includes the pain of being molested, abused, and taking a girlfriend to have an abortion when he was much younger.
I think leaders lead in vulnerability. I think you can trust a vulnerable person. I think the airs and the guards are taken down, and people can find healing. You know, it's said that hurt people, but healed people heal people. And I can talk about those things because I'm healed, and it helps other people find a sense of healing and to be able to go there and pull those things out of their own closets and deal with them.
Let me guess you count money to the ceiling. Difference between us like at least a couple million.
And the audience for Lecrae's healing message continues to grow. He made his acting debut in the film Believe Me. Just as Anomaly began its steady climb up the music charts.
The album wasn't for me, it's for everyone. You know, it was for people to be able to embrace being the people that God's made them to be, and being okay with that. Not marveling at the anomalies that we've seen, like, wow, Martin Luther King, what an anomaly. But saying, hey, guess what? It's your role too, you know, is to stand up and stand out.
It is your role to stand up and stand out. There's new music coming very soon from Lecrae, and a new interview with Studio 5 as well. Be sure to stay tuned for that. We'll be right back. Thinking of taking a trip to the Holy Land? Well, you are not the only one. New numbers show people are flocking to visit Israel. 1.7 million tourists have arrived in the country since the beginning of the year. People are coming from countries like China, Russia, and the United States. April and June were record-breaking months for Israel's tourism industry, with 303,000 tourists arriving in June to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Six-Day War. Now, you can learn more about Israel's history and the Six-Day War by going to CBNNews.com. Superbook is helping churches in Indonesia. More than 2,200 churches in 17 cities in Bali are using Superbook's curriculum. Since churches have begun ministering to their children with the curriculum, more than 139,000 children are able to use it in Sunday school every week. CBN employees also conducted training for Sunday school teachers in 3 cities across North Sumatra. Well, right now, it is time for your Wednesday Word. And in today's Word, consider this. If the dream or goal burning in your heart is more than you can achieve in your own strength, that's a great sign. It is from God. So don't be overwhelmed. He wants to work His plan through you. With every step that you take towards that goal, watch Him work on your behalf. With that word, be sure to make this a wonderful Wednesday. Well, that is a wrap for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at CBNNews.com. We'd love to hear what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do that by emailing newswatch@cbn.com. Make this a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you right here tomorrow.